Nigeria is one of the countries that's currently experiencing climate impact. They're already feeling the impact of climate change and they're experiencing it. It's only natural for them to take a bold step towards climate action to help mitigate the effects of climate change on the country. And that is where we have the Climate Change Act. Hello, welcome back to the channel. This is Jan of Kaduna signing in for #Sustainable Sunday. After COP26, that is the Conference of Parties number 26, this is an annual UN conference for climate change. The President of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, in the year 2021, COP26 happened in the year 2021. He committed Nigeria to securing net zero targets by the year 2060 and to keep global temperatures at 1.5 degrees Celsius. To cement that commitment, immediately the president came back from the COP26 conference at UK. He signed into law the Climate Change Act, the Nigerian Climate Change Act. Now, what is the Nigerian Climate Change Act? I'm here to break it down for you so that all of us will understand it together, what this act means for you and I, and for Nigeria as a country as it pertains to climate change. What is the Climate Change Act? The Climate Change Act is a legal framework to help reduce greenhouse emissions and to push climate action into national plans and programs. The Climate Change Act allows the government to meet climate change obligations like the one it made at COP26 to help secure net zero targets by the year 2060 and also to reduce and lower global temperature. The Act establishes the National Council on Climate Change as the body vested with the power to make policies, implement them, and make decisions as regards to climate change in Nigeria. The president of the country is going to be the chairman of this council, and the vice president of the country, of Nigeria, is also going to be the vice chairman, and there are other members of this council which will include ministers of environment, petroleum resources, transport, and other ministries that is related to climate change, with youth and women bodies, and also representatives of people of disability, and also representatives of people living with disability. Now that there is a National Council of Climate Change set up, how will funding come about? Climate establishes a climate change fund. Now this fund will be brought about. This fund will comprise of money approved by the National Assembly. It will also include money approved by the National Assembly, by the Nigerian National Assembly, also grants, donations, and also from the services rendered by the council, the money that they will get from services rendered by the council, and also funding from international organizations. This fund will be used for the administrative cost of running the National Council on Climate Change and its offices. It will also be used to support climate change advocacy. It will also be used for incentives for transition to clean energy, because if you want to be able to achieve lowering carbon emissions, you have to invest in clean energy. So part of this money is also going to be used part of this money is going to be used as incentives for transitioning to clean energy. What is the action plan? Act mandates the Federal Ministry of Environment and National Planning to set up a carbon budget. What is a carbon budget? A carbon budget is the maximum amount of carbon emissions that is permitted so that we could be able to meet the minimum temperature rise that we can afford. To also help to fight to limit the temperatures to 1.5 degrees Celsius, which is what is perfect for the globe, for the earth. The council will be tasked every 5 years to come up with the National Climate Action Plan, and the first of this plan is supposed to be out within the first 12 months after the commencement of the act. The plan must first be made available to the public for consultations before it is then approved by the Federal Executive Council, the Nigerian Federal Executive Council. And what are the obligations of this act? The act imposes obligations on ministries, directorates and agencies, public entities and private entities. Now for the MDAs, that is the ministries, directorates and agencies, They are obligated to have a climate change desk in any of the ministries, directorates, or agencies to ensure integration of the climate change policies that are already put in place, make it their core mandate, and to make sure that it is actually implemented to be able to meet up with the reduced greenhouse emission targets. Now there'll be sanctions, and there'll be sanctions for the heads of these MDAs if these obligations are not met, and they could also be fined if these obligations are not met. I hope so. Now, for private entities, these actually affect like private entities that have at least 50 employees upwards. Now, you in this part of the obligations is to make sure that they have either a climate change officer or an environmental sustainability officer that will always give them reports on how far their private entity has gone towards meeting the requirements of the action plan, and to make sure that how they'll be able to meet up with the targets of the action plan that has been given for private entities. A report to be submitted to the National Council on Climate Change, their secretariat, for approval. There is no set consequences for failure to do any of that. For public entities also, there is no defined scope on what the obligations are, but the secretariat, the National Council on Climate Change Secretariat, is mandated to give like obligations even to the public entities. There are also proposed incentives for public and private entities to help them achieve their greenhouse emissions reduction target. So how far? This act was signed in November 2021, and how far? Okay, I would say it has not been so far, because up until then, it was on the 25th of July that the Director General of the National Council on Climate Change was actually confirmed and appointed by the President Muhammadu Buhari. And already that is how many months after the stipulated 12 months that the action plan ought to be ready. So I don't know, from November till July, December, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, 8 months in, and it's just now that the council is being like set up properly, because now you have already we know we have the chairman and vice chairman, all those ones, but this is now the person that is actually in charge of the main work that should be done. And it's just now he's getting appointed 8 months in, and we do not have an action plan yet. 8 months in, while the stipulated time that this action plan should be made available is 12 months after the commencement of the act. So we have 4 months left. Let's see whether the action plan will be ready by then. It should be made available to the public. Before it is then approved by the Federal Executive Council. Let's hope that it will be ready before then. Also, what are limitations towards achieving like our carbon emissions goal and targets? Well, it is no news that the entire Africa as a continent only contributes it's not even up to 4% of global carbon emissions, of global greenhouse gases emissions. It's not even up to 4% of what the entire continent contributes. If you look at it logically, should we be reducing what we are not like culprits of emitting? But it's still no news that Africa as a continent is also going to be one of the worst hit by climate change. So we still have roles to play in the whole climate change thing. We still have a huge role to play in climate action. And even though, yes, we know that we are surely going to ask for a lot of climate finance from the global north, because they are the biggest culprits here, but that does not mean that we shouldn't do our own work at home first. So there might be some difficulties, especially there might be some difficulties like domestically, because for instance, because transitioning to clean energy is way more expensive in Nigeria. Compare someone that is going to transition to solar power that will power his entire house. How much that person is going to spend compared to someone that is still just reliant on buying petrol every day. Even though, yes, if you look at it in the big picture, it's cheaper, but how many people have that money in, like, for the big picture kind of money to spend on solar power immediately? So there still needs to be incentives, especially in the clean energy sector. There still needs to be subsidies in the clean energy sector, so that we could be to be easier for a whole lot of us to transition well into clean energy. And also there's also going to be the argument that we are not properly developed. We are still a developing economy, so reducing carbon emissions, how is that going to affect our economic growth? How is that going to affect our industrial growth? Those are still some of the questions that need to be answered. It's not just for us to just run to say we are reducing carbon emissions that we don't even have a lot giving out, but notwithstanding, climate action is still very, very important. Whether we are the least contributing, whether we are the least emitters, whether we are the least emitters in the world, we still need to put all our resources together, and we still need to bring a united force when it comes to climate action, because it's not going to ask you whether you are the worst emitter or you're the least emitter. It's just going to affect us all. So if you have any questions about the Climate Change Act, you could ask me in the comments down below. I hope that I can be able to answer your questions, and if I can't, I'll direct you to where you can answer where your questions could be answered. I'm also going to leave a link of the entire Climate Change Act as it is in its raw form, so you could also read it by yourself and understand it in the way that you best fit. But I hope that I've been able to explain and break down the Climate Change Act in the best way possible. And let's hope and pray that it is not just going to be one act that's just going to sit down somewhere and gather dust. And we hope that corruption is not just going to mar this, because climate action, we need to start now. We don't even need to start tomorrow. We need to start now. And for this act and for the appointment of the DG of the National Council on Climate Change, it shows that they're beginning to take actions, even though it's not as fierce as we would want them to be. At least they're doing something, and we'll keep on calling for them to do more and to do more and to do better. So if you've watched this video up to now and you've enjoyed this video, thank you very much. Please subscribe. Thank you for the growth. I'm seeing the subscribers coming. Thank you very much. Please subscribe, like this video, share with your loved ones too, or people you feel this message will be very beneficial to. Until my very next one, remember that you can be the change that you want to see. Joanne of Kaduna, signing out.